30 push-ups a day might sound like almost nothing, like something that couldn't possibly make a real difference. But here's what most people don't know. This one simple movement has quietly become one of the most studied predictors of how long and how well a person is going to live. It costs you nothing. It takes about 2 minutes. You can do it right in the corner of your bedroom without a single piece of equipment. And yet the changes it sets off inside your body reach all the way down to your blood vessels, your metabolism, and your cells. In this video, I'm going to walk you through 7 specific things that happen when you do this every single day. Every single one of them works at the very level where disease is either stopped before it starts or allowed to take hold. And if you stay with me all the way to the end, I'll also show you exactly how to do this if you can't yet do a full push-up, because there are several ways to modify the movement and still get the vast majority of the benefits. So wherever you're starting from, whether you're 50, 65, or even 80, this video applies to you. If any of this sounds like something you or someone you love needs to hear, go ahead and drop a comment below. Tell me where you're watching from. I read every single one. Now, before we get into the 7 things, it's worth pausing for a moment on why this matters at all, because the answer is really about how far we've drifted from the life our bodies were built for. Think about how people lived just a few generations ago. Your grandparents, maybe your great-grandparents. They were lifting, carrying, hauling, pushing, and pulling heavy things for most of their waking hours. Their muscles were under constant load throughout the day, simply as a condition of staying alive. But the modern world has quietly erased almost all of that. We don't need to lift anything to survive anymore. We sit to work, we sit to travel, we sit to relax. A body can go through an entire day without challenging a single muscle. And here's the problem. Our physiology hasn't changed to match that. It still expects that daily load. And when it doesn't get it, things begin to break down. So 30 push-ups a day is, in a very real way, giving your body back a small piece of the demand it was designed to thrive under. Number 1, you start building the muscle that actually keeps you independent later in life. Every time you lower yourself down and push back up, you're loading your chest, your shoulders, your triceps, and your core all at the same time. Each repetition creates a small amount of mechanical stress inside those muscle fibers, and that stress is actually the trigger for everything that follows. When you load a muscle that way, it switches on a pathway inside the cell called mTOR. The simplest way to think about it is as a master switch for building muscle. Once it's flipped on, it tells that cell to start laying down new protein, repairing and rebuilding those fibers a little bit stronger than they were before. Do that day after day, and 2 things happen together. The muscle itself grows, and your nervous system gets better at switching it on. That's why your strength tends to climb even faster than the actual size of your muscles. And this matters far more than just being able to lift things. Starting in our 30s, every single one of us begins losing muscle, decade by decade, in a process called sarcopenia. It speeds up the older we get. The people who end up frail in old age, who struggle to rise from a chair, who have a fall and never quite recover, are so often the people who let that muscle quietly slip away over the years without ever noticing it. So 30 push-ups a day becomes a small daily deposit against that decline. You're protecting the very strength that will let you stay independent, living at home, on your own terms, well into your 70s and 80s. And that independence, when you really think about it, is one of the truest measures of a long and good life. Number 2, your heart gets a real workout out of this. And most people never expect that from a push-up. People assume you need to be jogging or cycling to get a cardiovascular benefit, but that's not the whole story. When you push your entire body weight off the floor, those large muscles in your upper body, your chest, your shoulders, your triceps, your core, all have to contract hard, and the moment they do, they demand a surge of blood and oxygen to keep going. Your heart feels that demand immediately. It answers by beating faster and pumping more forcefully. String 30 of these together and you've given your heart a genuine, if brief, piece of real work to do. Over weeks and months, it adapts to that. It becomes more efficient, moving more blood with every single beat. This is exactly why a large study following firefighters over many years found something quite striking. The men who could do more than 40 push-ups in one go went on to have dramatically lower rates of heart attacks, strokes, and other cardiovascular problems over the following decade compared to the men who could only manage fewer than 10. Their push-up capacity actually predicted their future heart health better than a treadmill stress test did. When you train toward 30 push-ups a day, you're quietly training the one organ that has to keep going for every second of the rest of your life. Number 3, your bones get a signal to stay strong. And this is one of those things you can't feel while it's happening. A lot of people picture bone as dead, static scaffolding, but bone is living tissue. It's constantly being broken down and rebuilt, and your body decides how much to invest in that process based on the demands you place on it. When you do a push-up and your muscles pull on the bones of your arms, shoulders, and chest, all of that force sends a clear message to the cells that build bone. It tells them this skeleton is being used, so keep it dense, keep it strong. Take that signal away, sit still, barely move, and bone slowly thins down instead. Especially after middle age and especially in women after menopause. That's the road that quietly leads to osteoporosis, where a fall that should have been nothing instead shatters a hip or a wrist. A daily dose of loaded movement like push-ups is one of the very few things that actively tells your bones to hold their ground. And strong bones later in life are often the line between a stumble you simply brush off and a fracture that changes everything that follows. Number 4, your blood sugar becomes much easier to control. And this one reaches right into your metabolism. Your muscles are the single largest place in your body for storing and burning glucose, which is just the sugar floating around in your bloodstream. Normally, to pull that sugar out of your blood and into your cells, your body needs insulin. Insulin acts like a key, bringing little doors called GLUT4 transporters to the surface of the cell so the glucose can get in. Here's the remarkable part. Muscle contraction brings those exact same doors to the surface, completely on its own with no insulin needed at all. So every time you work through a push-up, your muscles are pulling sugar directly out of your bloodstream, no key required. And the more muscle you carry, the more regularly you put it to work, the more efficiently your entire body handles blood sugar throughout the day. That turns out to be enormously important. Chronically high blood sugar, and the insulin resistance that travels with it, sit right underneath type 2 diabetes. And over the years, they quietly chip away at your blood vessels, your kidneys, your eyes, your nerves, and the feeling in your hands and feet. 30 push-ups a day will never replace eating well. But as a daily habit, they nudge your metabolism in a direction that protects you against one of the most common SARS and most life-shortening conditions we face today. Number 5, your posture and your core start to transform. A proper push-up isn't just an arm movement. To hold your body in that straight, rigid line, from the top of your head all the way down to your heels, your deep core muscles, your glutes, and the long muscles running along either side of your spine all have to switch on and stay switched on for every single repetition. Every push-up also doubles as a moving plank. Train those muscles day after day, and they grow stronger. As they do, they begin to draw your shoulders back, support your lower back, and gradually lift you out of that hunched, collapsed posture that so many of us settle into after years of sitting at a desk or on the couch. This goes well beyond just looking better. A strong, stable core shields your lower back from exactly the kind of injury that can put someone out of action for weeks, and it keeps you balanced and steady on your feet as you age, which circles right back to preventing the falls that do so much damage later in life. Number 6, your brain benefits too. And this one surprises most people. When you exercise, even for just a minute or two, the muscles you're working release chemical messengers into your bloodstream. Your brain picks up on those signals and responds by releasing some of its own. You get a rise in endorphins and other mood-lifting compounds. And alongside them, you also get something called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Think of it almost like fertilizer for your brain cells. BDNF helps your neurons stay healthy, encourages them to form new connections, and helps them resist the slow decline that creeps in with age. So a daily set of push-ups isn't only reshaping your body, it's quietly feeding your brain at the same time. People who keep exercising regularly throughout their lives go on to have measurably lower rates of dementia, but also of depression and a noticeably sharper mind well into old age. And on a much shorter time scale, a small burst of effort in the morning tends to leave you more alert, steadier in your mood, and better able to handle stress for the hours that follow. The cost is just a couple of minutes. The return lands squarely in the organ you most want to protect as you get older. And number 7, you build the one habit that pulls everything else along with it. This one has less to do with physiology and more to do with who you slowly become over time. There's something powerful about an exercise that asks for no gym, no equipment, no commute, and barely 2 minutes of your day. It strips away just about every excuse you could reach for, which means you can actually do it every single day. And that daily consistency is where the real magic behind all of these changes lives. None of these adaptations come from one heroic session. They come from showing up in a small, repeatable way, again and again, until your body simply has no choice but to change. There's also a clever way to get even more out of this. Split your 30 push-ups into two smaller sets, 15 in the morning and 15 later in the afternoon or evening. The reason that helps comes back to that MTOR switch I mentioned earlier. A moderate set of push-ups is just enough to flip it on without breaking the muscle down so heavily that you'd need days of recovery. By giving the muscle a second nudge later in the day, you top up that building signal and keep the window open longer. And once you've proven to yourself that you can hold down one daily habit, it tends to spread. People who start with their 30 push-ups so often find themselves walking a bit more, sleeping a little better, and eating with a bit more care, almost without ever consciously deciding to. The push-ups become the first thread you pull, and a whole healthier life slowly unravels from it in the best possible way. Now, if you're not yet able to do a full push-up, that is completely fine. And the good news is that you can still get the large majority of everything I've talked about in this video just by modifying the movement a bit. The easiest place to start for most people is to get into a push-up position, but instead of resting on your toes, rest on your knees. That keeps the exact same pushing pattern, but takes a good portion of your body weight out of the equation. Easier on your shoulders, your chest, and your arms. If that still feels like too much, walk over to your kitchen counter. Place your hands on the edge with your body at about a 45-degree angle and do your push-ups leaning in at that angle, then pushing back up. That counts. And if you need to start even more gently, stand nearly upright and lean into a wall, push yourself away from it and then slowly lower back in. Every single one of these absolutely counts. The same muscles fire. Your heart still responds. Your bones still get loaded. Your brain still gets its lift. The only thing that's changing is how much weight you're asking yourself to move. And as you get stronger over the weeks and months, you'll gradually lower the angle. From the wall to the counter, from the counter to your knees, and from your knees all the way down to the floor. Your body adapting to meet each new level as you reach it. There is a starting point here for everybody, no matter how old you are, no matter where you're beginning from. So 30 push-ups a day turns out to be far from a small thing, whatever form you can manage right now. You're holding on to the muscle that age tries to take from you. You're giving your heart real work to do. You're telling your bones to stay strong. You're helping your body manage blood sugar. You're pulling yourself up out of that hunched posture. And you're feeding your brain at the very same time. But maybe most importantly of all, you're proving to yourself that you can show up for one small thing every single day. And that habit is what ends up dragging everything else in your life upward with it. On their own, each of these benefits is already tied to living longer and living better. Put them together and repeat them for 10, 20, or 30 years. And they add up to something far bigger than 2 minutes a day. So start where you are right now. Against the wall, on the counter, on your knees, or flat on the floor. It genuinely doesn't matter which one. What matters is that you start today and that you come back and do it again tomorrow. If this video opened your eyes to something you didn't know about push-ups, share it with a friend or a family member who could use this information, and drop a comment telling me whether you already do push-ups, or if today is the day you're starting. I'd love to hear from you. Just remember, the strong, sharp, and independent version of you 10 or 20 years from now isn't built in one occasional gym session. It's built on the small things you do every single day.